The hardest part about being me isn't the technical challenges or the market volatility, Vitalik said, his analytical mind processing emotions like code. It's that I see patterns and possibilities that others can't see, which makes me feel like I'm living in a different reality. He smiled sadly. When you can envision the future of human coordination and economic systems, it's hard to small talk about weather or sports. My autism helps me focus intensely, but it also makes social connection incredibly difficult. Tonight, I'm sitting across from Vitalik Buterin, the 29-year-old creator of Ethereum, who accidentally built a $400 billion economic ecosystem while struggling with the profound isolation that comes with extraordinary intelligence. Worth over $1 billion but wearing a simple black t-shirt, Vitalik represents a new kind of genius, one whose greatest creation might also be his greatest source of loneliness. People assumed that creating Ethereum and becoming wealthy solved all my problems, Vitalik continued, his Russian-Canadian accent soft but precise. But money doesn't fix neurodivergence, and success doesn't cure social isolation. If anything, it makes authentic connection harder because everyone wants something from you. The waiter brought our drinks, but Vitalik's focus remained on the philosophical implications of his unique position in the world. I've been different my entire life. At age 4, I was already programming simple games. While other kids played with toys, I was fascinated by mathematical patterns and logical systems. My parents knew I was unusual, but they didn't know how to help me connect with peers. The autism diagnosis came later, but it explained a lot. My brain processes information differently. I can see complex systems and their interactions in ways that feel natural to me, but seem impossible to others. That's my superpower and my curse. Vitalik showed me some of his early programming projects, complex algorithms he'd written as a child. School was torture. Not academically, I was always ahead of my grade level, but socially, I was completely lost. I didn't understand why kids cared about popularity or sports when there were fascinating problems to solve. I spent most of my childhood alone, which is when I learned that computers were more predictable than people. When did you first discover Bitcoin? 2011, when I was 17. My father Dmitry showed me this white paper about digital money, and I immediately understood that this wasn't just about currency. It was about reimagining how humans coordinate and trust each other. For the first time in my life, I found a community of people who thought about systems the way I did. The early Bitcoin forums were full of cryptographers, economists, and programmers who cared more about elegant solutions than social status. The first course arrived, but Vitalik's passion for the subject kept him engaged. I started writing for Bitcoin magazine, analyzing protocols and interviewing developers. Finally, I had found my tribe, people who understood that code could reshape society. But even within the crypto community, I was often the youngest person in any discussion. The problem with Bitcoin became apparent to me around 2013. It was designed to be digital gold, a store of value and simple payment system. But I could see that blockchain technology could do so much more. Smart contracts, decentralized applications, programmable money, the possibilities were endless. That's when I wrote the Ethereum white paper. I was 19, living in my parents' basement, surviving on $5 a day, but I could see the future clearly. Ethereum wouldn't just be another cryptocurrency, it would be a world computer, a platform for building any kind of decentralized application. Vitalik pulled up the original white paper on his laptop, pointing to concepts that seemed impossible at the time. The white paper took me months to write because I was trying to explain not just the technical architecture, but the philosophical implications. I wasn't just proposing a new blockchain, I was describing a new form of human organization. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Developers from around the world wanted to contribute, investors wanted to fund it, media wanted to interview me. Suddenly, this introverted teenager who'd never had many friends was at the center of a global movement. How did that attention affect you? It was terrifying and exciting simultaneously. On one hand, I finally had people who understood my vision and wanted to help build it. On the other hand, I became a public figure when all I wanted was to solve interesting technical problems. The main course was served, and Vitalik reflected on the early days of Ethereum development. 2014 to 2015 were the most intense years of my life. We were building something that had never existed before, a general-purpose blockchain that could execute arbitrary code. The technical challenges were immense, but the social challenges were harder. I was suddenly managing a team of brilliant developers, fielding questions from investors, speaking at conferences, and trying to maintain the philosophical integrity of the project. I had no training in leadership or public speaking. I was just a programmer with big ideas. The weight of responsibility was crushing. Millions of dollars were being invested based on my white paper. Thousands of developers were building on our platform. If Ethereum failed, it wouldn't just be my failure. It would set back the entire decentralized web movement. But the loneliness was the hardest part. Even within the Ethereum team, I was often the only person who fully understood the long-term vision. I'd explain concepts that seemed obvious to me, and people would look at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Vitalik showed me messages from the early Ethereum community, highlighting the mixture of excitement and confusion that surrounded the project. Launch day, July 30th, 2015, was surreal. We'd built this platform that we believed could change the world, but we had no idea if anyone would actually use it. The first smart contracts were simple: digital tokens, basic games, primitive applications. But developers immediately started building things I'd never imagined: decentralized exchanges, prediction markets, digital art platforms. The composability of smart contracts meant that innovations could build on each other exponentially. Within months, Ethereum was supporting use cases that even I hadn't anticipated. That's when I realized we'd created something bigger than any individual vision. We'd built infrastructure for collective intelligence. How did success change your personal relationships? It made them more complicated. Suddenly, everyone wanted to be my friend, but I could never tell if they cared about me as a person or as the creator of Ethereum. Genuine connection became almost impossible. Dating was particularly challenging. How do you explain to someone that you accidentally created a $400 billion economy while you were still a teenager? How do you know if they're interested in you or your wealth and influence? The restaurant was quieter now, allowing us to explore the more personal aspects of his journey. The crypto community became my family, but it's a strange family. We're connected by shared beliefs about decentralization and cryptographic freedom, but we're spread across the globe and mostly interact through screens. I attend conferences where thousands of people know my name, but I often feel lonelier in those crowds than when I'm coding alone in my apartment. The attention is overwhelming for someone who's naturally introverted and socially anxious. What about the criticism and attacks? That's been one of the hardest aspects. When Bitcoin was just a niche experiment, disagreements were philosophical. But when billions of dollars are at stake, every technical decision becomes politically charged. I've been called everything from a genius to a fraud, sometimes in the same day. People analyze my tweets for investment signals. My technical opinions move markets. The pressure to be perfect constantly is exhausting. The 2017 crypto bubble was particularly difficult. Ethereum's value exploded from $8 to over $1,400, and suddenly I was worth billions on paper. But I watched people lose their life savings on speculative investments in projects I knew were unsustainable. Vitalik showed me his social media mentions during the bubble period, an overwhelming stream of both worship and blame. I never wanted to be rich or famous. I wanted to solve interesting problems and build useful technology. But when your project becomes worth hundreds of billions, you become responsible for other people's financial decisions, even when you never gave investment advice. The crash in 2018 was almost a relief because it separated people who believed in the technology from people who just wanted quick profits. But it was also heartbreaking to see legitimate projects fail because of market speculation. How do you cope with the isolation? I've learned to find connection in unexpected places. Online communities of effective altruists who think about optimizing human welfare. Academic conferences where people discuss mechanism design and cryptographic protocols. Conversations with other neurodivergent individuals who understand thinking differently. I've also tried to use my platform responsibly. Instead of hoarding wealth, I've donated over $1 billion to various causes: pandemic relief, life extension research, global development. If I'm going to be wealthy, at least that wealth can reduce suffering. But the fundamental challenge remains. When you see the world differently than almost everyone else, finding your tribe is incredibly difficult. Most people can't relate to thinking about problems on the scale of civilizational coordination. As our dinner wound down, Vitalik reflected on the broader implications of his unique position. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd been born 20 years earlier or later. Would I have found my community sooner? Would I have been better prepared for the attention that comes with changing the world? But I also recognize that my timing was probably perfect. Blockchain technology needed someone who could see its full potential before others, and my autism helped me focus intensely enough to build that vision. What brings you joy now? Solving hard problems. When I'm working on Ethereum 2.0 or thinking about scalability solutions, the loneliness disappears because I'm in flow state. The mathematics and code don't judge or want anything from me. They just are. I also find meaning in knowing that Ethereum has enabled thousands of developers to build applications that couldn't exist before. Decentralized finance is giving people financial freedom. NFTs are helping artists monetize their work. DAOs are experimenting with new forms of governance. Even if I feel disconnected from most people, I'm connected to this global network of builders who share my belief that technology can make coordination more efficient and equitable. What's your advice for other neurodivergent individuals? Embrace your differences instead of trying to mask them. My autism isn't a disability. It's a different way of processing information that happens to be very useful for understanding complex systems. Find communities that value intellectual contribution over social conformity. The internet has made it easier than ever to connect with people who share your interests, regardless of geography. Don't let others define success for you. Society often measures success by wealth, popularity, or conventional achievement. But if you're neurodivergent, your path will probably be unconventional, and that's okay. As we stood to leave, Vitalik offered his final thoughts on genius, loneliness, and the responsibility that comes with changing the world. Being the smartest person in the room is lonely, but it's also a privilege. With that intelligence comes the ability to see solutions that others can't, to build systems that improve human coordination, to contribute to the long-term flourishing of our species. The loneliness is real, and it's hard. But if my isolation is the price for helping build a more decentralized and equitable world, I'll pay it. Sometimes the most important work happens at the edges of human experience. I may never have a normal social life, but I have something else. The knowledge that my weird brain helped create infrastructure for human cooperation that will outlast any individual relationship. That's a different kind of connection, but it's profound in its own way. This evening with Vitalik Buterin revealed that the greatest innovators often pay a personal price for their contributions to humanity, and that the loneliness of genius is both the cost and the catalyst for revolutionary thinking that can reshape the world. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos to hear the most private dinner conversations where billionaires reveal their deepest secrets. Which part inspired you the most? Drop it in the comments. Let's figure out how to become billionaires together.